Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. And remarkably, I've not cocked up the intro. Suj is on holiday. My name's James. You probably know that. And I've got a special guest with us today. Let me introduce you, Shaun Thorpe. You might know as FF Thinker on the Bird app or for our patrons on Slack. How are you, Shaun?
I'm not too bad. Thank you, James. Thanks, John. Good to have a chat about everything Sky. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise, mate. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a bit about you and Sky experience and history. How you getting on?
Yeah, so I sort of started playing, well, fantasy football as a whole, really. I've played a little bit of it, like, since probably like 16, sort of that sort of age, but sort of around
You can't do
COVID.
that. Not
Well,
Sky, anyway.
not Sky, no, definitely not Sky. More sort of like the FPL and a couple of other formats. But yeah, since sort of COVID, sort of that's sort of where it's sort of become a little bit more so obsessive, but sort of that obviously period back then where didn't really have much to do, and obviously sort of flung myself into fantasy football. So yeah, sort of been playing Spy probably my third year properly, I'd say. Sort of first year was a lot like learning the game, intricacies, passing tiers, tackling tiers, all that sort of stuff. Trying to perfect it like last year. I love Sky just from a strategy point of view in terms of you don't see transfers, so you are sort of playing. You've got to play your own game really because you can't really compare yourself to anyone else. You just don't know on the whole what everyone's got left transfer wise. So yeah, you've got to play your way, as you say, obviously. But yeah, it's just yeah, I'm sort of in analysis in my day job, so that side of it is just it was greatly to me really. So yeah, really enjoy it. And this year, just saying before, I think I've got two teams just inside the top 10k now, so not too bad. I've used 9 transfers in both teams. Obviously, a lot of both teams have quite a few similarities, sort of Haaland, Salah. Both have got Johnston in goal and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so hopefully in the next sort of run up to the overhaul, sort of try and get a little bit higher, using a few more transfers, and then see where we fall after Christmas.
Good, good. Yeah, no, that's reasonably placed at this stage, mate. There's still a very, very long way to go. We're kind of, I don't know, what, 21% of the way through the season or something. Really long way to go. We're obviously going to come on some of the weekend games. Obviously, we've got a couple of single game days coming up. Firstly, obviously, an update on this final weekend of November TV selections. I think in terms of December, we could get something before the weekend. Technically, we should get something before the weekend. But this is the Premier League and Sky and TNT. And obviously, we've got Amazon involved in this as well, this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's late and it becomes next week. But we've got added, obviously, we've got the weekend, the Saturday 25th to Monday the 27th. So Saturday 25th, nothing overly to be concerned about. Manchester City and Liverpool, much to Jurgen Klopp's delight, is going to be the 12:30 kickoff. It will be shown by Sky. This is straight after international break again. So the third time in a row, Liverpool will have that. This is down to the police rather than the television companies. I don't think there's anything to be overly concerned about with that day because you can just Haaland and a home game is certainly fine. People have something. Arsenal at Brentford, which is the 5:30 kickoff, would probably be the best alternative for a captaincy that day if you wanted to look elsewhere. We have 2 games on the Sunday. And again, it does look like my team might be the standout. 2:00 kickoff at home to Aston Villa. Manchester United go to Everton in the later kickoff. The reason I say Tottenham rather than Manchester United is because kind of that would be the entry point, I guess, for Manchester United. And I look afterwards and see Newcastle away and then Chelsea at home. As a caveat, the one after that would be Bournemouth at home. So there would be certainly 4 for 2s over a number of teams for Manchester United at that point, subject to that weekend in December and the fixtures there. But I think most will probably be landing there still with a Tottenham player. As an interesting off side note of that as well, in terms of hop on and hop offs, it does mean that you could continually bounce from Salah to Son and back again all the way through this period up to there. So if you're sitting there with Mo Salah now, this is just an example. But it does work for Tottenham to Liverpool. You could captain Salah on Saturday if that's your preference. Go to Son as an example. Captain him against Fulham and Crystal Palace. Move back to Salah. You get Forest and Luton. You don't miss any Tottenham. Then Tottenham have got Chelsea against Wolves. You don't miss any Liverpool. Then Liverpool got Brentford and Man City. And then you could go back to Sun again the next day on the Sunday. That will eventually definitely break after that midweek set of fixtures. It cannot go any later than sort of Sunday the 10th of December. But if you're the sort of person who's, I don't know, maybe struggling for budget and got a lot of transfers spare, I really wouldn't mind that sort of strategy, because so often with those 2 for zeros, they're not 2 for zeros. You can captaincies in there very often. I mean, a few of them are single game days. For Tottenham, there's 3. And I think there's probably 3 dates in there where I'd say Salah's probably the best captaincy as well. So it certainly could be considered. Are you a Mo owner at the moment, Shaun?
Yeah, I've got him at the moment. I've got no Spurs coverage at the moment either. I sort of chanced it pre international break, obviously when they had Luton, sorry. Obviously got away with that, but yeah, definitely obviously bringing someone in this week. But yeah, it's whether or not to then, like you said, daisy chain between it or just flip between the two. Or I've got no Saka at the moment either, so it's just depending. Do I then use a Tottenham asset, get the 2 games this week, and then move to the Arsenal? Because obviously Sheffield United at home next week is sort of the plum fixture probably on the Saturday. So obviously injury dependent on that. Hopefully we'll get a bit more news about it.
Yeah, I think that hop on, hop off isn't for most, by the way. It's going to be things like that. Daisy chaining to go something to Tottenham, into Arsenal, then maybe back to Tottenham again, for example. But I think for those who might be looking now and going, I'm really tight for budget, and who do I move in for Tottenham, for example? I think this sort of move could be considered, that allows you to hold, say, a Saka in longer term if he's past fit, and perhaps allows you to get in the likes of Rodri easier and just get him back in and keep him if that's what people want to do. So I do think that's an option. Monday the 27th. Go on, Shaun.
I'm tempted more by, obviously I own Salah anyway, but maybe going to like Sun for the next 2, or Madison, whoever you want to go to, but then maybe going to a Trent or a VVD, because the 2 games they've got are Forest at home, Luton away.
Yeah, you could do it that way, yeah.
They're massive differentials at the moment. And you sort of think Forest at home, Luton away, screams passing, which should hopefully.
Yeah, it
so
does.
You're sort of thinking you're probably getting, hopefully, 5 points for each, 10 points. 1 clean sheet being conservative. You'd hope 2. You're looking at sort of 16 points there, and then that might open up maybe more opportunities or further down the line. But yeah, that's an option for me as well, I think.
Yeah, the only thing with that is that I completely agree with you, but it'd still be, you'd have cojones to take on Salah, I think. Particularly the Luton away one, I think, because Liverpool definitely stand out captaincy on that day.
Yeah, it's probably no captain as it is, just an additional on top of the Salah captain. It's whether or not, if you think that's worth it or not.
Yeah, I like it, because I think most people will avoid Liverpool defensively because of struggling to fit in Haaland, Salah, Son. If you want Saka, etc., you're not going to end up with the likes of Trent or Van Dijk, for example. So, yeah, I really like that as a differential strategy idea if you want to take that sort of route. Monday the 27th, we've got a single game day, which is going to excite the nation. Fulham versus Wolves. We had this last year, and I think the reflection afterwards for everyone was, should have skipped that. For those who did, was probably very happy with it. And it does feel that way again. However, with the usual caveat, the fact that it's a Monday game might make it quite interesting in the sense that's obvious entry point. If it landed as a Friday game, I think we'd be looking at that and going, no, thank you. But as a Monday, it might. And that's subject to whatever fixtures are announced afterwards for the kind of the first set of December games. I would say, looking at it now, Wolves would likely be more interesting than Fulham. And the reason I say that is if you are entering there and considering Fulham have a rough next 4 fixtures, just generally, Tottenham, Brighton, Aston Villa away, and Manchester United at home. If you have like Leno, then you're probably carrying it through. That's fine. But after Wolves, they also go to Liverpool. And I think the Nottingham Forest game afterwards might land on the Thursday, which then the West Ham game will land on the Sunday or the Monday, and you might be struggling to get off. Now, if the West Ham game were to land on the Monday, you might go, well, it's 4 fixtures there, and I'm possibly going to captain twice. With Wolves, though, I think the exits might be better, and the fixtures are better, importantly. They do go to Arsenal afterwards. But then I've mentioned that Burnley game, which there is a chance, obviously, it could be a single game day on Tuesday, the 5th of December. Everton Newcastle's the other game, could be a single game day on that fixture. And then there's Nottingham Forest at home afterwards. So I think, let's just say Wolves Burnley landed as a single game day on Tuesday, the 5th. You're effective 5 for 1. And you look at the Arsenal game in the middle as a bonus. And then I think, yeah, you can consider punting the likes of Hwang or Neto or even Sarr. Sarr, in terms of save points, regularly picks them up in goals. So I think it might be that Wolves are more interesting when it comes round. But yeah, my first instinct, Shaun, was skip you.
Yeah, I think the only, like I said, definitely not one to worry about too much at the moment
Nah.
because a lot of the fixtures in early December could, like I said, if the single day game for Wolves, that just the gain of it makes it worth it. I think, yeah, Hwang and Neto look the options at the moment, but again, 4 games, a lot could happen, so no point. For me, I think if I was going into it, I've got Johnson in goal, who's been fine like before. I've been trying to not get rid of him, but I'm thinking I'll get rid of him at some point, but he's just obviously been churning out the decent returns, and obviously he's got good fixtures after that. But he might be the one, if I do decide I want to go for it, I might move him after the Luton game on the 25th to Leno.
Yeah, that does look nice.
Or Sarr. I'm just, yeah, I don't want to make too many transfers. I want to keep this, but I'm just thinking, like after the Luton game, they've got West Ham and Bournemouth, which is decent, but then they've got Liverpool, City, Brighton, Chelsea, Brentford, and Arsenal. So they've got a difficult sort of last 6. Whereas you go to like either Wolves or Fulham, they've got a couple of decent, tricky ones in there, but the rest of them are decent enough. So I think that would be where I'd go. We say that on a lot of single days, don't we? That often, especially lower, like lesser teams, the keeper is probably the right play. So I think that's probably where I would go. But it does depend on the early December fixtures as well.
Yeah, just the other caveat on that, it's a small one, but just looking a little bit further ahead on Palace, reminder what I'd said last week, that there has been murmurings of Crystal Palace Brighton on Thursday, December the 21st. Now, if you sit there with Lewis Dunk, that would be your choice, presumably. So therefore not so important, but it might be something to factor in your thinking. You are right, though. And that's why, people say, you must skip. You're absolutely right. Looking at that as a Johnson owner, you come off of Burnley, Everton, Luton, and then afterwards have got West Ham, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Man City, Brighton. You think, well, yeah, that's the right time to come off of them. That's the end of their good run. So, yeah, it might work quite nice for you, actually. But otherwise, I think for many people, it does smell like one that skip. The thing is as well, it's also, I think it lands close enough to overhaul. You probably think, whatever I get in here, maybe I should keep it. Because we speak about, say that Wolves one, I've said it's a 5 for 1, potentially with 2 captaincies. It's also 2 transfers. So it really has got to be worthwhile. Something's got to go off in there, I think, to make it worthwhile. So my instinct at the moment would be skip. As Shaun said, it's certainly nothing worth worrying about currently. What in your team currently, Shaun, is worrying you at the moment? Are there any players in there you're thinking, this is becoming a problem?
I was looking at myself of my 11. I've got Haaland, Watkins, Dunk, Salah, and Bowen. Yeah, they'll just stick. Johnston as well, like I just said, we'll keep him until potentially that point where we change it. The other 5 were the ones I've looked at and thought, not necessarily issues, but they're the sort of make weights for any sort of moves going forward. I've got Silva and Diaz in defence. Diaz is decent enough, obviously, but he's expensive, and their fixtures coming up are, I know it's Man City, but they've got Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham, and we discussed beforehand. At the moment, Tottenham are the only team that haven't conceded a passing to yet in the whole season.
Remarkable, yeah.
The most anyone's got is, I think we said it was one of the Burnley defenders, O'Shea. He's got like 49 passes. So yeah, he'll still return, and Man City will probably keep clean sheets, but we know they've got a tendency to sort of concede one every game, pretty much.
Yeah, concentration is higher for games like this, though. It is worth saying.
Yeah.
When a lot of the goals they concede is when they get sloppy mentally, I think. We're 3-0 up. The concentration will be higher in games like this.
Yeah. I just think as well, I think he's 9.7 or something like that, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think for me to do a few other moves, he's probably the make weight, like to drop him down to like a Romero save like 1.8 million, I think it is, and then obviously use that money to go elsewhere. The two Chelsea boys I've got Enzo and Silva. They're probably going to go either this weekend or next. I'll probably use Enzo as like a Tottenham, either to Madison or Son, because I've got a couple of million in the bank as well at the moment. And then Silva next week will probably make way. I think I was going to look at it. Might be like the sort of, if I go down the Trent route, I might try and figure it in that way. I've got Rice. He's solid enough. Just ticks over. I am tempted to try and make him into Rodri at some point. But that's sort of it's an extra 1.2 million. So he might stay just because, he does similar. And the other one we spoke about was I've got Foster up top from Burnley. He's obviously 6.6. Initially, I thought, I need to get rid of him, Burnley striker. But I actually look at it, he got sent off. But other than that, he returned in every game apart from the Man City game start of the season. And at 6.6, obviously Nakamba's exactly the same price. So you could think easy switch to the two, but he scored more points than Nakamba this season. So with there being no pressing sort of third striker option I want at the moment, he will probably stay. And I think they play the early game quite a few weeks, and they play Saturday every week. So if there's any time I do want to come off of him, there's plenty of options to come off him, and they've got decent games.
And also, obviously, to come back to the Fulham Wolves, if Wolves Burnley landed a single game day and you're just sitting there on it, then Wolves Fulham would become way more skippable for you, right? Well, I've got Foster in place for Wolves Burnley. I don't need to worry. And then you could come off Foster from there potentially. But I don't mind that actually. I think many of us at the moment will have Haaland and Watkins. If you look at the ownership, the two players in the top 1K, it's really high. Watkins, I think it's in the top 3 most owned now. I think in the top 1. I think it's the two of them and Salah, I think, are the 3 highest owned players as it stands currently. So unless you're like, there'll be a number of people got to say Alvarez. Alvarez is the only other forward that's kind of got really any ownership, and I've got all 3 of them at the moment. But for you with Foster, I don't think you'd be looking to, I need to get Alvarez now. You're not going to captain him. So it doesn't feel necessary. I'd be leaving that, I think, mate. I think that's cute. Their fixtures get a lot better over these next couple of months as well. So as long as he's fit, the problem with always having a cheap forward like that is you just got to be conscious of the exit.
Yeah.
But as you've got 3 up front, that's not so bad. What you got to be careful is you think in a few weeks, say Watkins got injured, and you think, all right, I'll get Watkins to Rodri or whatever, then you might need to be cautious that you're not, oh shit, I want to sell him, it's 5-4-1 or something like that. That's all. But I think while you've got the other 2 up front, which I presume, unless one of them got injured, there is no reason really to be removing either of them at the moment, then I think it's fine, to be honest, Shaun. I'd be keeping it. I'd rather I was sitting there at the moment with Foster than Bayer, and I'd probably rather it over Nakamba as well, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
So that's fine. And for those with the big Bayer problem, by the way, who do only have 2 up front, if news were to come through about Bayer being out for a while, then I don't think that's the worst move, is to even consider investing in Foster. You might find your setup better than that, because we've spoken about this before. The one thing we're saying, Nakamba, who's doing great, he's cutting off potentially a midfield spot. And that's where we probably want most of our money at the moment. For me, Bayer is obviously a concern, but I'm not hugely worried about it if he's fit, because it's the value in there is enabling me enough, and I wouldn't think of moving him to Nakamba or moving him to Foster. I'm not going to with the front 3. I've got Silva and Diaz for me as well, Shaun. I think both on the chopping block. I think Diaz will probably go for me on Monday, which we'll talk about in a bit. Silva is kind of my make way back to Lewis Dunk on Sunday week. Levi Colwell is the other one that's a potential problem for me. And I think he's also on the chopping block for me Monday night, because I may be going free Tottenham on Monday because, well, why not? There's plenty of reasons why not, by the way, but it's something I have spoken about, wanting more than one. I think if I go with 3, I've got to be ahead, haven't I? And then make my choices longer term. Yeah, probably. One will get sent off, one will miss a penalty. It will be something like that, won't it? The rest I'm fairly happy with at the moment. Madison could go for me. because I'm intending to sort of add Romero and Son to that. So I think part of that is then moving Maddison off after the Tottenham games. I just think Sonny, if he's fit, and he is at the moment, the limping many of you might have seen for South Korea was unrelated to the injury that he's currently carrying. So he's okay. If Sonny's fit, I just feel like there's enough options coming up. We are probably going to want to captain a Tottenham players. You've got Fulham at home, Palace away, the Chelsea at home single game day. And I think now, although it's not a brilliant fixture either, I think Villa at home, probably yes again, Tottenham player, to be totally honest. So I think because of that, I want the bigger explosiveness of Son. You could also make a case for, I think, even Saturday the 11th away to Wolves, particularly if you don't have any Arsenal or Manchester United at that point, then you probably will. And currently I'm sitting there without those two things. I have very much a consciousness of Saliba particularly, who is also a little bit of a concern at the moment because he pulled out the France squad, didn't he? I think he's probably going to be okay. But it might be I look at, say, Maddison to Saliba when Arsenal play Sheffield United and then carry through with Romero, much better option than Colwell, in my opinion, and then Son as the Tottenham captaincy cover rather than Maddison. I spoke a couple of weeks ago that in hindsight, I wish I'd gone to Son rather than Maddison, although I think from memory at the time, I didn't really have the choice because I didn't have the money. I think it had to be Maddison for me, but I'm quite keen to flip that. We'll come back onto Tottenham and get your thoughts on them in a sec, Shaun. Saturday, captaincy. Has it got to be Haaland?
I mean, obviously Salah's a great option, home to Everton. Steelers team as well, just in case. It's one of the two, isn't it? I don't think anyone else is jumping out there. I mean, you've got Newcastle home to Crystal Palace, so maybe a Trippier. I'm surprised how much, looking at it last night, how many times Trippier's hit passing tier this year. Given that, again, you look at the Liverpool game, obviously they were down to 10, so they're going to have more of the ball. So it's still a smallish sample of 8 games, but I think he's hit it, always been very close to hitting it, like 6-7 times, something like that. So I've always been very not anti-Trippier in Sky, but he's not the traditional Sky defender. You're looking for that passing guarantee on your clean sheets. Obviously, he does offer attacking threat, but I think on Saturday, it's got to be. I don't think it's got to be Haaland. I will go with Haaland. I think just because
I don't think it's got to be, but I'm going to do it, and that's kind of my take as well. Yeah,
I think it'll be an open game. So
yeah, I think my simple philosophy is very similar to what it'd be in the other fantasy format. Is that a home game? I don't really want to gamble against him unless I got particular reason to doubt that he would play. That doesn't exist this weekend for me as it stands. So I think, yes, Haaland over Salah for me Saturday. Trippier does smell like it could be a haul, but I don't think it's necessary to take that sort of gamble from the captaincy perspective. I think interestingly on that as well, obviously all Newcastle's games that we can see currently are a Saturday. So the only entry point left would be if you're coming off Tottenham, basically, after the Crystal Palace game on Friday the 27th. So it's probably gone in terms of entries for Newcastle. It's probably keep what you've got and let the rest go. Have you got any of it?
No, I was going to say to you a minute ago, what presumably at the minute, if you were overhauling now, you'd play 3 at the back, I'm guessing, because you'd either have 4 or 5 midfield, wouldn't you? So I don't think you'd be playing a 4-5-1, personally, I don't think anyway. But who would your 3 be at the minute? I'm guessing Dunk.
As defenders?
Definitely one. Yeah. I don't know if that Trippier would make the cut for it.
No, I think Dunk, Romero, Saliba would probably be the ideal. I know that doesn't look great this week, but then Arsenal, Brighton both come into really good sets of runs from there onwards. Greater guarantee of passing tiers rather than your likes of West Ham and Villa defenders, for example. I recognise Villa have got a few coming up, but it might be quite good. You said to me off camera, I think that the Villa's next 3 against the 3 teams who've conceded the most passing tiers so far.
Yeah, 3 teams by a fair distance at the moment. I've conceded the most tiers, and it is West Ham, Luton, and Forest, and that's their next 3.
But then even that, like Pau Torres would probably be the one from that perspective, and he's more expensive than Cash, who's ticking over with the odd shot tier and a few tackle tiers and obviously attacking contributions. So I'd probably prefer that. So I think Yes, and I think with Romero, there would be lots of opportunities to come off if you felt like that was wrong, because Tottenham have these kind of two fixtures gap. If you do get to a point where you feel like it's wrong, then I think there's loads of opportunities to come off. He could even be the make weight for even the Fulham Wolves, potentially, subject to how you're set up. So I think, yeah, Romero, Saliba, Dunk, but then because of that, I'd probably still want Pope in goal, which I keep looking at and I keep thinking, I'd be better off with something like Johnston that's cheaper, but I've got a consciousness of that Everton Newcastle potential single game day, the same day of that potential Wolves Burnley, and the fixtures are still okay. They get all right again, kind of going into the overhaul as well. So when I got Pope, that was a decision for me absolutely to leave him in as competitive to go against a Newcastle coverage that I knew people were going to have elsewhere. Trippier, of course, is capable of wild hauls, but if Newcastle do concede goals, it does feel like it could suddenly go into 2-2-2-2-2 with him potentially if they're conceding.
Agreed.
Sunday, what's your Villa West Ham plan, Shaun?
I've got both, I would say, the main assets in terms of Bowen and Watkins.
Yeah, I've got both now as well.
I'll probably go with Watkins because it's the home game. But I think, yeah, if Bowen returns, I'm probably up on it anyway. So yeah, I'll stick with the home player.
Yeah, Bowen was something that kind of was right for me, I think, to make the move because of injury issues that I had last week. And it obviously gave a secondary for, let's just say, Watkins had got injured playing for England. Then I would have been happy just to go into this Sunday and go, yeah, that's fine. Let's go with Jarrod Bowen. So yeah, definitely Watkins for me. What would your advice be to someone who's got none of it at the moment? Has it got to be Watkins at this stage?
I think I'd be tempted. You're going to use transfers. Well, you may or may not use transfers on Monday for Tottenham, but both of them have got decent runs, haven't they? West Ham, Luton, Forest, Fulham for Villa, and then obviously Villa, Everton, Brentford, Forest for West Ham. They've both got decent options. I think for West Ham, it's really only Bowen, I would say. Maybe you go Areola if you've got, I don't know, like
I think Areola would be reasonable, yeah.
So then he could be an option. The same with Villa. I think there was a question on Twitter about moving off a keeper, and I think Martinez is probably an option as well for Villa. I think, yeah, other than that, maybe Douglas Luiz, we said again off camera, he might hit the passing against those three teams. Obviously, is in there for tackles on penalties as well. So he's an option, but he's 8 million and Diaby's 0.1 extra, like you said.
Yeah,
so,
I'd go Diaby of that.
But I just think there's not a huge amount of strikers you want, really. So rather than I'd like to have at least two up there. So if you haven't got one already, you've already got Haaland, for example. I think Watkins is probably the play, and Bowen obviously does take up another midfield slot when that's where most of the options we want are at the moment.
It's interesting how the narrative changes in terms of plans and stuff, because I think a lot of people, when the fixture was announced, thought it'll be Diaby will be the one of, very reasonably priced at 8.1. And if you're on that, you shouldn't panic about that at all. I think I'd just run with it, to be totally honest. But that Watkins haul against Brighton has very much changed the narrative in terms of his ownership is now really big. If you were sitting there with Diaby, would you want to be adding Watkins? Or would you just go, that's enough?
Yeah, again, so the fixtures are good, but I do wonder if two of them is probably a bit overkill. So, yeah, probably. Are you going to captain another Villa player any other time? Probably. I mean, they've got Luton at home next Sunday, haven't they? But
you got City or at United. You got Liverpool under Forest. Like, again, if you think Salah's going to play, there would be no reason to think he wouldn't. I'd still rather stick the armband on Mo in that case, I think. But yes, Watkins at home to Luton. You certainly wouldn't go Diaby over Salah. I'll take that point. Watkins over Salah next week. Yes, there might be a conversation to be had about that because of the opponent. Again, Sunday the 5th November. I guess it's a fallback option, but you wouldn't captain over Salah against Luton. And similarly, I think you would prefer the Tottenham player over the Villa player on Sunday the 26th of November as well. But I guess it gives you secondary options. Yes. The fact that they always play Sundays is kind of a nice backup, but then that applies to the other teams in Europa on most of the occasions as well.
Yeah, I think you've got to weigh up really. What do you think Diaby can return? as a captain, what's Watkins going to return? Obviously, I don't know if it'll be that different. West Ham they're decent. They've done well this season. They're decently defensively, I'd say. So I don't think there's going to be like Brighton. Obviously, it's quite extreme, the 6 goals, but they've got that style of play where that could happen. I don't think West Ham have that necessarily. So I don't think there'll be a mega haul in it either way. So I would probably just stick with Diaby.
Yeah, I think if I was sitting there with just Diaby or just Cash, I'd probably just run with that, I think. Yeah. And assess options. I'd want to be, because Villa's fixtures remain good, I'd consciously be monitoring that, I think, particularly in relation actually to, say, Mo Salah. If Mo Salah got injured, you'd argue, I'm sure maybe it's a Villa player rather than an automatic Liverpool replacement. What do you think about Cash? He's in like a third of the teams in 1,000, and I presume that'll go up on Sunday.
He sits in the same. He's slightly different. Trippier, obviously, he's playing a lot further forward, isn't he? But I don't know if it's sort of that mindset that you sort of have as Sky players, that you want your defenders to sort of be ideally guaranteed sort of passing where they can. And obviously, he doesn't really offer that. He does offer the tackles potentially, but it is more attacking output you're going for. I don't think I'd go for it. You're not going to captain him. So even if he gets 10 points, is it going to hurt you that much?
Let's take an example.
Villa's defensive.
Let's take an example though, that you've got Alvarez, Haaland, and Foster as your front three, and you don't want to be playing around with that, and you don't want to move it for whatever reason. Then something like that's going to come into consideration. I think I probably do prefer it to Torres, which is unusual because, like you, I'd be looking at that and I'd be thinking, yeah, do you know what? I think the passing tier could be there for the next 3 or so, but also be thinking this is a choice I might be making all the way to overhaul, and therefore I'd probably like the upside of Cash, I think.
Yeah, I'd go Cash over Torres because, like you said, yeah, the 3 games he might get it, but there's no guarantee after that he will. I'd be more tempted defensively for a Martinez. I'd rather be Cash or Martinez than going defensively, because I just think they've got decent fixtures. Again, it's probably a long-term hold. So they've got Man City and Arsenal before overhaul, but both are at home as well. So they've got that. I think they've got probably the best fixtures overall in terms of pre-overhaul. So it'd be close between. It depends on your keeper situation, not the value, doesn't it? Because what's Cash at? Is he
7-7.
Late sevens?
7-7.
Yeah, like you said, it's just a case that you're going to be holding. You don't have to hold him, but obviously,
I think as well, it might land for people that say they're stuck in let's just say that they're in a 3-4-3 build up already, and people have got the likes of Colwell and thinking they want to move that on. Like I can see Cash Sunday, Romero Monday, both being popular in that sort of circumstance. What I'd add to that is I think under that circumstance, I'd rather go for Romero.
Yeah. There's just more options to be flexible off of him, isn't there? If something changes, that something down the line, the fixtures come out and we're going to need X team for 2 single days or something like that, then
yes, because the other flip is we mentioned this with, say, a few other teams would say regularly playing on a Saturday. Villa is always the Sunday. Like there's a few where, say, Liverpool flip, so like Man City, say people want to gamble Shimikas really short term, let's say Robertson's out for a month. After Man City, November 25th, there's an exit point there for Shimikas. With Cash, there isn't one really, unless it's onto, or a different Villa player, unless it's onto Tottenham, Monday the 6th against Chelsea, which maybe chances are you've already got something in place, or again, the Fulham Wolves fixture. And you'll probably want to, because afterwards, it's Bournemouth's away on a Sunday, so again, there's no come-off. Then there's Man City, then there's Arsenal. And the Brentford game the following week will be the Sunday. It could even be the Monday Night Football, actually, on Monday the 18th of December. It's one of 2 possibilities that could be. Forest and Tottenham is the other. And I do sense that because Tottenham have had a lot of Monday night games, I sense Brentford Villa might be more likely. Yeah. And then that's a re-entry point rather than an exit point.
Yeah, because the Arsenal game, I think, in December has to be on the Saturday against Villa, doesn't it?
That's correct, yeah. Saturday the 9th, yeah.
It's the Champions League. So, but then, see, there's an off there, but
You
I
might
don't
want to
know.
come back on the following game. The Brentford could be a Monday.
Yeah. So I think I wouldn't go there. I think there are other options at the moment defensively, like you said, Romero or and all like that. And then if Cash comes into an absolute flying bit of form in the next 2 or 3 games, he's easy enough to bring in at some point. Like I said, whereas if you go with him now by coming off, if Bay is injured or whatever, going now, then you're not going to get a fixture game at any point.
Yeah, okay. We agree Watkins best captaincy though.
Yeah, I think so.
I think also if you've already got Watkins and you're interested in Bowen, depending on what you want to sell to get there, you might be better off waiting an extra week for the Everton home game the following week. But there's not going to be a requirement for captaincy for a while. There's one of I think 6 games that could in theory be a Monday Night Football on December the 11th. But again, you could come back to then as and when it happens when they go to Fulham. But it's good run of fixtures for West Ham. So I think we're probably both happy that Bowen's in there. It's not an issue thinking about it. I think it's a nice differential coming up. His ownership's decent though. It's similar ownership to Matty Cash in the top 1,000. It's in a third, so I'd have a consciousness of him. He's well priced at 8.8 in midfield. Monday night, who do you think is the best captaincy, Shaun, for Tottenham v Fulham?
I think it could be Romero.
Go on.
I don't think Tottenham will blow them away. I think he'll have them set up Fulham relatively solid, I'd say. I can't see him scoring maybe a couple of goals, Tottenham. So you sort of think, well, Son or Maddison, what do I get? Might get a goal, might get an assist. They might get, I don't know, 10, 12 points, potentially. Whereas I think Romero is, well, not guaranteed passing, but he's looking like his passing is there. So that's 5 points. Clean sheet on top is 10. Maybe chuck a yellow in for 9, but
He's only been booked once this season.
I'm guessing he's obviously fouled people now after like the first 4 games. Whatever.
The remarkable stat that was going around, yeah.
I don't know. It's tricky. I can see the upside with Son, but I just think it's just more solid to go with the defender. But so it just depends on your risk appetite. I imagine Sonny will probably be the most popular. I would say, probably followed by Maddison and then Romero. But I think I will probably I'm definitely bringing Romero in, and then I'm going to bring in one of Son or Maddison. It just depends which one.
So you've got none at the moment, yeah?
I've got no one in the game.
Would Maddison over Son be dependent on other moves rather than you're not sure which one to go for?
Well, this is the thing at the moment. I'm definitely bringing Romero. I'm definitely bringing one of the other 2. I might bring in both, but because I've got no Arsenal, and my consciousness is the only way I'm getting to Arsenal really for a game is by selling one of them straight away after the two singles. Whereas if I just go for the 2 of them, it will be a case I'll just then be left with Romero, haven't got rid of the other attacker, and then when it comes around to Tottenham Chelsea on the 6th, that will be my only player is Romero, which isn't the worst thing, but again, I feel like I'd probably want another attacker. But again, it's just whether or not Saka or Martinelli, whichever Arsenal attacker I bring in, what damage would they do? Sheffield United at home, Newcastle away is not the best, but it's that Sheffield United at home game. I think if you're going to do it, you probably want to captain them on that Saturday, I would say, to make it worth it. If you're going to come in and out sort of thing.
What, into Arsenal, you mean?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
so.
and I keep looking at that Saturday the 28th because we've both got Silva. And is Silva your move to Romero? Is that your plan?
Well, Enzo's definitely going on after Saturday, and then I'd had a quick try and play about it last night. It's either Silva or Diaz. And my only conscience with Diaz is I'm trying to think which one of those 2 do I hold? If I kept Diaz, I'm getting United and Bournemouth up to the Saturday the 4th of November, and then I can move Diaz on to Trent or DVD or whatever it is. But then I'm missing Forest. So I'm sort of been going into Luton. So it's a case of, have I sort of
You've
missed it?
missed one, yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be thinking that.
So I think it might be Enzo and Diaz to Romero and Son this week. Hold Silver and then sell Silver on the Sunday the 29th for a Liverpool defender.
Yeah.
But I just need to make sure I've got the funds to work it.
I think that the thing with the Saturday the 28th, I do keep looking at that, and I'm planning to go Silver to Dunk the next day. And I keep looking at it, I think Silver will it Parsons here against Brentford, and I'll see the team. So clean sheet there is going to get me 20 if they can do it.
Yeah.
And it's not beyond reach. And then I keep thinking, what if I go Saliba, which is probably what it'd be for me, because I just think budget-wise for me with Saka, he's possibly going to be pushing it for me a bit. So if I go Saliba, I'm going to move that captaincy from Silva to Saliba, and I might not be any better off.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can look at it on paper. Like if you're going into that week, Arsenal against Sheffield United, Chelsea against Brentford. If your choice of captaincy is Saliba or Silva, do you go in Saliba? But am I better off just going, man, I ignore that and captain Silva against Brentford? Know that I've got Pope as the backup away to Wolves. Should the Chelsea team drop and shit, he's not in it, because I wouldn't want to panic and get something else in because it's Silva to Dunk the next day. And leave that be. That then means no Arsenal for me for a long time. So I'm very open to different possibilities here. I think partly for me on Monday is I think I want Son for the ceiling for the captaincy. And Romero, exactly what I said last week, is Romero is now the Sky asset that we thought he was going to be at the start of last season. He's now there now.
Yeah.
So I want him in as long-term. He goes in, and I know there's some more difficult games, particularly kind of early in December for Tottenham, but then the Christmas isn't bad either. And I just think, right, he goes in, he stays in. And that's an insurance pick, a really good price for long-term for me. And Maddison becomes more expendable for me. So I'm part putting in Son to move Maddison after the Palace game. Then it's a choice of, is that going to be Saliba on the Saturday or Rodri on the Sunday? Is probably going to be the choice for me. And that's not necessarily easy to decide, actually, because, of course, you think, oh, Rodri, but the fixtures are rough and Arsenal's are very good. And Saliba will give me a captaincy option that Rodri won't. So that's going to be the kind of a big call for me, I think, Saturday week. So my intention would be Colwill to Romero and then Diaz to Son. That's my plan Monday night. I've got Watkins and Bowen in place for Sunday. Once I do that, it's going to be 36 transfers left for me. And then once I make the next two the following, I'm down to 34. That's going to be really low compared to most people. And for me there, it's kind of going to feel like log out, I think. I'm going to need to.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're justifiable moves for me that have got the longer term gains on it. And I kind of want to get into late November. I feel like I've insured myself with things like Pope in goal to kind of proof me against potential single game day problems and stuff. So I think Son is the best captaincy Monday. Because I think that it's the what it could be. I can look at Romero and think, yeah, every chance you are 10 times 2. And there's more chance of probably Son hitting a 2 than a Romero hitting a 2. I completely agree with that. But I know which one's more likely to explode. And it's Sonny for me. Thoughts on that then with Son?
Yeah, I think he'll probably be the one I bring in. It's the Arsenal question. Can I, because I haven't got any like you. Can I then go pretty much probably until, like I said, they're playing first every game definitely up until sort of December 16th, and by that point it's like, well, is it worth bringing them in, sort of thing. So it's just whether I can do it. It's not so much, obviously the Sheffield United game is good, but you've got Burnley at home, Wolves at home, Luton away. It's just there's a lot of games in there. So that's the one at the moment. Is, do I want to go to Arsenal? If I don't, then I will probably just bring in Son, leave him in until probably like the Wolves game, and then
I
reassess it.
think the other thing that could be a real influence as well is the December fixtures, which by the time next week comes around, surely we will know by Saturday, November the 28th, the start of the December fixtures. And the reason I say that is if Man City Tottenham gets moved to Sunday the 3rd and Arsenal Wolves stays on the Saturday, then I think what you'll find is Arsenal will be best captaincy on Saturday the 2nd and then Tuesday the 5th, possibly against Luton as well. Now, I think there's every chance that Arsenal will play Wolves on the Sunday and then Luton on the Wednesday, and it'll be less of a problem. But if it does stay Saturday, Tuesday, I think then you're throwing in 2 Arsenal captaincies that would be best, and there's no entry point. So then, then it would have to be for me Maddison to Arsenal.
I suppose the only thing would be like if they move to the Sunday, you've got like Liverpool will definitely be on the Sunday, won't it? Because obviously they'll be playing Europa on the Thursday. They're at home to Fulham.
So but I'm talking about if the Arsenal game stayed a Saturday and the Tuesday.
Yeah,
because that Arsenal Luton's one of only 3 games. Arsenal Luton on Tuesday the 5th cannot be a single game day. It cannot happen. Wolves versus Burnley can be, and Everton Newcastle can be. But if Arsenal were at Luton on Tuesday the 5th, we want to captain Arsenal players, surely.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, if Haaland at home to Tottenham moves from Saturday the 2nd to Sunday the 3rd, Arsenal at home to Wolves Saturday the 2nd also is going to be standout captaincy, I think.
Yeah.
So that needs factoring in.
Find something out. So yeah, it's whether or not I then go. I hopefully find out sort of by the weekend fixtures. But if not, it's then on Monday. Do I go for 2 or 3 in the hope we find the fixtures on the Friday before the Friday game, and then can move off one of the 3 to an Arsenal player if I need to. Like I say, if they stay where they are, then yeah, you're gonna want one, aren't you? So
I think that morning, Saturday the 28th, is probably the latest we would find out the December fixtures.
12:30.
It can't be any later than that. And I say Saturday the 28th because at the start of the season, we did have a Saturday morning announcement, didn't we?
Yeah.
That might mean some late decisions potentially, but surely we'll have it. I'm quite hopeful we might have something this week, although I suspect it might be late as covered. Should we do a few Twitter questions then, Shaun, before we finish up, pick out some bits from, I'm completely unprepared for this, some bits that perhaps we haven't covered off from a number of really good questions that we had actually, more than usual, so thank you. I've just come across my friend Dave, so I'm going to shout him out first. Simple goal. How important is owning Son for the next 2 Spurs single game days? Worth a transfer if you already own Maddison, Romero, worth 2 transfers. That's it, isn't it? Because I think there's a lot of people be listening to me going, just go with Maddison, James. And it's not I think Maddison's a bad option. I just think Son's ceiling is way bigger from a captaincy explosiveness potential. It's my take. FPL Equal says Rodri straight back in this Saturday or wait till next Sunday and a better entry point. I've just spoken about maybe not going there. I wouldn't be desperate to get him for Brighton at home. I think that's probably one of the worst fixtures for Rodri. Actually, he might not hit passing tier in that game. I don't think that's impossible. And with the way Brighton attack as well, I wouldn't be surprised if he got cautioned in the game as well. I think that easily could be a 1-pointer actually for Rodri on Saturday. So I wouldn't be in a rush to do it now. The United game, I'd almost expect more of him. And yes, that's the entry point. And as kind of just discussed, it's probably going to be Arsenal versus Rodri for me in terms of investment. So we'd all want him. It's just a case of I wouldn't force him in this weekend. If you've got like an injury at similar price bracket and it works for you, then sure, be my guest, crack on. But I think, wait for the Manchester United game. Would that be your take?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sat with Rice, and if I've got the cash, he's going to be the one that I think I will look to go to. It's him or a Brighton asset midfielder, because obviously they've got Fulham, Everton, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, and the 4 after the Man City game. So, and obviously Rice to March, Matoma, Gross are all the same sort of price. So I think I will look to maybe move Rice on to one of those. But yeah, it's whether or not, obviously he's worth the money, but it's whether he's worth the extra money in the team I've got when you're not going to captain him. And yeah, I don't think I'll go there. I'll assess it again sort of after the weekend and see where we're at with it.
Adam Byron says, if Saka is declared unfit this weekend, is it worth moving him on to Son and coming back the following Saturday? Already own Maddison gives me the option to ditch Maddison after the singles and hold Son long term. Saka's fitness this weekend shouldn't really play into that because the choice is the same whether he's fit or not, right? Because the game's not on the same day. So, look, is it justifiable to potentially go Saka to Son 4-0 and then move Maddison back to Saka to kind of fix your team if you want and still get the gains of fixtures? Yes, I think it is. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely.
And of course, then obviously, if he's doubtful now, you might be in a position next Saturday where he's still unavailable and you can Martinelli as a differential choice, for example, might come into play. I like this one from Lee Bishop. Says, how much would Jude Bellingham cost in Sky Fantasy? How good was he last night? Bloody hell.
I saw this. It's mad at the moment. We've got obviously him playing for Madrid, Kane playing for Munich. I just don't know what he'd be worth in Sky. I don't know what he's like passing numbers and that sort of stuff. I can't imagine does he get the passing numbers? I don't know.
No, I bet he did a few. He'd obviously hit a few shots.
Yeah.
And he'd probably win a few tackle tiers as well, I should imagine. I don't know what his data is from that perspective, but he's an absolute monster off the ball presser. I bet he'd get some tackle tiers as well.
Depends if you went into like an Arsenal or a City, then he's going to be like Rodri on drugs, isn't he? Basically, in terms of
he'd have to be like 11 at minimum, I think.
I'd say so. It'd definitely be one you'd have. Yeah, they couldn't be like in the UCL at the moment. He's in at like 8 million or something like that. Isn't he? Something stupid. His price.
It's cheaper. Really I think it's 7.5. I think he's in everybody's team.
It's just like they'd have to put it at least 10, if not 11, just to sort of make him a little bit of a decision.
Like this one from Josh Wilkinson says, how much does ownership come into things in Sky? Feels very evident that it's mentioned less, but wondering if either of you ever consider it when making any decisions. Absolutely. And I'd say it's mentioned probably more, I think, in Sky would be my take.
I think it's not mentioned so much in the early part because we tend to use top 1K, don't we? Obviously, that's a good barometer in terms of the best players. What are they doing in terms of moves and stuff? And obviously, at the moment, we're still in the process of we've had game weeks, and there's a lot of players that are just absolutely going through 5 transfers a week. So just what they're holding the top 1K at the moment doesn't really have a huge sort of benefit in terms of being able to view what the sort of template is, so to speak. But I think probably maybe next international break after we get through that another 4 weeks worth, because that'll be 12 weeks. That means if they've used their 5, they're getting to the point they've got none left. You'll then start to see what the true sort of ownership of the decent players is, and we'll get more of an idea of what it looks like. But I'd use it more in terms of captaincy. So if there's sort of like do I captain the 2, which I suppose is going to be a little bit like the Spurs on Monday night. It's like if it's going to 50-50 and I've got Son and Romero, actually should I just go Son because more people are going to probably own and therefore more people will captain him and just take the risk out of it at this stage. Play a bit of risk-free.
Yeah, get that. There's nothing wrong with following that template at this stage, particularly. Stephen Hunt says, best midfielder or forward, 8.2 million or less to replace Bissouma. Currently just have Haaland up front in a 4-5-1, 39 transfers left. I think to add on to that first, I would not sell him now. Wait till after Palace because no one else is playing twice before he plays Palace. And he obviously is suspended for Fulham, but he'll play against Palace. So that surely is a move for next weekend if you still want to do it. And you may decide, perhaps, for example, he doesn't get booked against Palace. His next game is a single game day against Chelsea. You probably then take in Chelsea and Wolves and then look again. So he's probably a hold till he gets booked again. Ironically, just the way Tottenham's fixtures work out. But hypothetically, if you did want to move, Shaun, where would you be going with that? 8.2 for an attacking player.
I looked, obviously, what did I write down here? There was all of the Brighton assets, basically. So I like you said, I'd keep him for these 2 because you're not getting a gain over anyone. And then you've got your option of everyone, haven't you, pretty much, apart from Crystal Palace. But I would move, Brighton, any of them really, Ferguson. The issue you've got with any of the Brighton assets really is just rotation. You don't know who's going to play, but you've got Gross, Mitoma, March,
But that,
Ferguson.
what's going to say, it probably makes Mitoma the best shout, doesn't it? He'll get the most of it. I think
Yeah,
Mitoma will regularly start 4 out of 5, and then you just, whether you're lucky or not, whether he misses out in Europa or the league, probably where
yeah.
you're at.
So I think any of those is a decent asset. Other than that, there's not a huge. It's if you want explosiveness, I suppose. Like now, I've taught myself into Lyle Foster now. I quite like him now. But in the space of a day, I've gone from wanting to get rid of him to actually, I'm quite happy with sticking in there. And if that 1.6 mil could then be used elsewhere, I think he's a decent option.
Doing a
Which
little
I
bit of
can't believe I'm
trivia.
saying.
High scoring forward under 8.2.
I think I saw this yesterday. Is it Edward?
It is.
Yeah.
I don't think you get the midfielder though. High scoring midfielder under 8.2.
8.2. It's gonna be. Let's have a look. Oh, is it someone Hawley that's had a couple of? No, I don't know. It's not March or anyone, is it? No.
I don't think anyone would get it unless they literally had seen it and knew. The answer is Abdullah Dekoro.
I saw him in. I was quite high up, and I was wondering how he'd done it. I think he scored a couple, hasn't he? But
I
yeah,
would
don't
I
think
would
I'll be
add
going
into
there.
that and say 1 point behind is Musa Diaby. And I think if you did specifically want to sell Bissouma this week, that's probably the answer. Is
Yeah,
Musa Diaby, I think, at 8.1 with the good fixtures that Villa have coming up as discussed. So I think Diaby, but I'd just hold Bissouma at least until after the Palace game. And then you've got your choice of 18 other teams for the rest of the week if you want.
yeah. I
Brookie
sold.
said, Brookie says, yeah, no, I'd sold him straight after the Luton games. I think it was that. It was either sell straight away or now you might as well wait till the Palace game's gone because no one's got a gain on him. And the chance I will it Parsons here at Palace next Friday night. So unless it was something for captaincy, i.e. you have no Villa or West Ham, in which case, sure, I get it. Otherwise, I'd wait. Brookie says, best replacement for Edison.
I would say, in terms, if you want to gain off of it, it'd have to be obviously Martinez or Areola this week, or Vicario potentially.
Yeah, Vic will do goods on the save tiers. I'm telling you, he'll be all right. And because of Romero, he won't get. I would prefer to have Romero, but Big Vic will hit save tiers definitely because we give everyone a chance.
If I was hanging on till next weekend and keep Edison for United in Bournemouth, there's a case to go to maybe Allison if you wanted to sort of get some Liverpool coverage potentially. So they've got Luton on the Sunday after Man City. You've got Bournemouth, so you could go there. But yeah, I'd say if it was me, I would probably go. I don't know. I'd probably go Martinez this week.
I'd probably be asking myself what could do me best for captaincy. And ironically, the three keepers we're discussing is probably the answer is no, except for the one that we haven't mentioned, which is Leno, because
Yeah.
the Wolves game is probably that you go, oh, sugar, yeah, you could be a captaincy for me there. But even in that case, if I was in that position, I'd hold on to Edison and go to Leno, Fulham versus Wolves, I think, under that circumstance. So I think if I had to go now, the right answer for me would be on money reasons. So I think for me, it would be Areola, actually, from that perspective. FPL Matt says best enabler 7 million and under Palmer, Nakamba, Bayer, or someone else.
I looked at this in terms. Obviously, I'm going to say Foster again. I think he's decent. The Canberra midfield is probably the one. Defensively, if you can stretch it, I think Simicast is an option for the next few. Obviously,
7-2, isn't he?
how long. Yeah, so it's just a bit more, but depending on how long Robertson's out, I just think the fixtures you want him for are probably the next 4 fixtures. I'd say you'd probably
it won't get much better than that.
No, so I think if you can do that, keep him until the Man City game, and then look to move him on. But I think that cheap into that defence. I know it's not been as great as it used to be, but they have had a tricky start. They've had obviously a couple of games with red cards and stuff, haven't they? So it's not been ideal, and I think they'll do all right over the next few. And I think I looked at it, their ownership is like defensively is, I think VVD and TAA are like 2% in the top 1K each. And so you're not going to get that very often with that fixture on. So yeah, that's why I'm sort of keen to try and get to one of them if I can.
I have the exact money to go from Bayer to Shimikas.
Yeah, you've got 3 up top as well, haven't you? So you couldn't, like I said, go to Foster or anything. I suppose it's then what would you do with consciousness? You will have to come off him again. It's that 2 transfers, isn't it? It's, at some point you're going to have to get rid of him. And it's who would you go to? So it depends what moves you're then going to do in the meantime to what you have in the bank. Because you're going to want probably 500,000, 1 million extra to bump him up to another decent defender.
Where that would really become interesting is just hypothetically, it came out this week and it was like, oh, Robertson's 10 weeks. Like it's really bad. Then there's something to think about shoving stuff about, because I could then go Silva to Romero and go Diaz to Son, still do the moves Monday I want to do, and then come back off Maddison. It might leave me tight for the move to Dunk. I'd need to work it out, but something potentially to consider. But I'm quite happy to keep Bayer, by the way. I just want him to play football.
Yeah.
Right. Here's one for you from Noel Brennan. It says, hi, James. Can you explain what you mean by daisy chaining a little more? Go on. I'll let you do it, Shaun.
Try and get it right. So basically, like the prime example be sort of at the minute. So you've got, I don't know, I've got Enzo in my team at the moment. He's okay, but he's not doing anything that great. So I will move him to Son or Maddison on Monday, knowing that I then want to get an Arsenal player in. So I'll then move Enzo to Son, get 2 games out of him, and then move Son to Saka, and knowing that I want to hold the Arsenal player long term. So it's like you still using 2 transfers, but moving it around so you're actually getting more of a gain in between those 2 moves, basically.
Yeah, exactly that. He also asked Noel about 5 at the back, so going 5-3-2, which, because he's saying like it's easy to get passing tiers at the back. Yes, it absolutely is. I just think the problem is there's so many outstanding potential good midfielders this year. I mean, if I narrowed you down to 3 midfielders, what 3 would you want? I mean, right now for me, it would probably be Salah, Son, and I guess in an ideal circumstance, if you were overhauling now, Rodri. And then there's no Saka, there's no Bowen, there's no Diaby's, there's no Martinelli's.
Yeah, I think Bowen's just in there because of the way the fixtures have fallen and injuries and stuff, and they've got a good run of, and he's the backup for Sunday just in case. But he's not one that you'd pick, or like if you had a whole range of everyone. I think you would go for probably the 3 you've said. It is a good job when I think about it that Kane isn't in the league anymore, because it's hard enough at the moment trying to move stuff about. And if you had Kane up there as well, the money would just be.
I mean, if we had Kane, we might not be top of the league. So I'm all right with it at the moment. Which reminds me, Michael Haaland says, time to give James some credit when he suggested Joachim Anderson a while back. Brought him in against Wolves and he's been a real differential. Cheers. Thanks, Michael. You can support the show at www.patreon.com/planetfpl, as Shaun does, where you won't get any better advice than what you get for free here anyway, but you can support the show if you want to. Shaun, thank you very much, mate. Anything you want to plug before you go?
No, not me. Just obviously, I say I'm FF_thinker on X as it is now, but yeah, and just enjoy your formats and yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much, mate. If you want more on Tottenham ahead of Monday Night Football, obviously yesterday's clash of correspondence was Tottenham versus Fulham with Ricky Saunders and Zara Curran, and we've got another one for you tomorrow, which might be important and relevant for Sky Managers coming up as well. It's Manchester City versus Brighton tomorrow with Jonny, Pringle and Sam Murray. Just leaves me to say thanks very much, as always, to Sam. Play it your way, as always, guys. Be nice to each other, and cue music, please, man child.